Between 1939 and 1945, more than 70 million people lost their lives as nations across the globe were pulled into a brutal struggle for survival, power, and ideology. But while the war lasted 6 long years, its outcome was decided not by every battle, but by a handful of critical turning points. These battles reshaped strategies, destroyed empires, and ultimately determined the fate of the world. Today we explore 9 battles that changed everything. The first battle takes us to 1940 and the skies over Britain. After the fall of France, Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler believed victory in Europe was almost complete. The only major power still resisting Germany was the United Kingdom, led by Prime Minister Winston Churchill. Hitler planned an invasion of Britain, called Operation Sea Lion. But before German troops could cross the English Channel, the German Air Force had to destroy the Royal Air Force. Thus began the Battle of Britain. For months in 1940, the German Luftwaffe launched massive bombing raids against British airfields, factories, and cities. But the British Royal Air Force fought back with fierce determination. Radar technology, strong leadership, and the courage of young pilots allowed Britain to survive wave after wave of attacks. When Germany finally failed to gain air superiority, Hitler cancelled the invasion. It was the first major defeat of Nazi Germany and proved that Hitler's forces were not unstoppable. The next turning point came in North Africa. The deserts of Libya and Egypt became the stage for a fierce struggle between Axis and Allied forces. Germany sent one of its most talented generals, Erwin Rommel, known as the Desert Fox. His goal was to capture Egypt and the Suez Canal, cutting off Britain's access to vital oil supplies and Asian colonies. But in 1942, the tide turned at the Second Battle of El Alamein. British forces led by Bernard Montgomery launched a massive offensive against Rommel's army. After weeks of brutal fighting in the desert, the Axis forces were pushed back. Churchill famously declared that El Alamein was not the end, not even the beginning of the end, but perhaps the end of the beginning. The battle stopped Germany's expansion in Africa and marked the start of a long Allied advance across the continent. But the most brutal battle of the war was yet to come. In 1942, Germany launched a massive invasion deep into the Soviet Union. Their target was the industrial city of Stalingrad, named after Soviet leader Joseph Stalin. The Battle of Stalingrad became one of the bloodiest battles in human history. German troops fought street by street, building by building, trying to capture the city. But Soviet forces refused to surrender. During the brutal winter of 1942-43, the Soviet Red Army surrounded the German Sixth Army, trapping nearly 300,000 soldiers. After months of starvation and relentless attacks, the German army surrendered. Stalingrad shattered the myth of German invincibility and marked the beginning of a massive Soviet push westward toward Berlin. While Stalingrad raged in the east, another crucial battle was unfolding across the oceans. In June 1942, the United States and Japan clashed in the Battle of Midway. Just 6 months after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Japan seemed unstoppable in the Pacific. Their navy controlled vast areas and threatened to dominate the entire region. But American codebreakers discovered Japan's plan to attack the tiny island of Midway. The United States Navy set a trap. In a dramatic naval battle, American aircraft carriers launched waves of bombers against the Japanese fleet. Within hours, 4 Japanese aircraft carriers were destroyed. Japan lost experienced pilots and ships it could never replace. From that moment onward, the strategic initiative in the Pacific shifted to the United States. Back in Europe, another massive confrontation was approaching. In 1943, Germany attempted one last major offensive on the Eastern Front at the Battle of Kursk. This battle became the largest tank battle in history. Thousands of tanks clashed across the Russian plains as German forces attempted to break Soviet defenses. But the Soviets had prepared massive defensive lines filled with mines, trenches, and artillery. When the German attack stalled, the Soviet army launched a huge counteroffensive. After Kursk, Germany permanently lost the ability to launch large-scale offensives in the east. From that point forward, the Red Army steadily pushed German forces back toward Germany itself. Meanwhile, the Allies were preparing for one of the most daring military operations ever attempted. On June 6, 1944, Allied forces launched D-Day, the invasion of Nazi-occupied France. Thousands of ships crossed the English Channel carrying Allied troops to the beaches of Normandy. American, British, and Canadian soldiers stormed heavily defended beaches under intense German fire. It was one of the most dangerous amphibious assaults in history. But despite enormous casualties, the Allies secured a foothold in France. The invasion opened a second front in Western Europe and forced Germany to fight on multiple fronts at once. The next key battle occurred during Germany's desperate final attempt to stop the Allied advance. In December 1944, German forces launched a surprise attack through the forests of Belgium and Luxembourg. This became known as the Battle of the Bulge. Hitler hoped to split the Allied armies and capture the port of Antwerp. Initially, German forces pushed deep into Allied lines, creating a large bulge in the front line. But fierce resistance from American troops slowed the advance. Eventually, Allied reinforcements and air power forced the Germans back. It was Germany's last major offensive in the West. As Allied armies closed in from both directions, the final battle approached. In April 1945, Soviet forces launched their assault on Berlin. The Battle of Berlin was the final collapse of Nazi Germany. Street fighting erupted across the city as Soviet troops advanced toward Hitler's bunker. German defenses crumbled under overwhelming Soviet artillery and manpower. Realizing defeat was inevitable, Hitler took his own life in April 1945. Soon afterward, Germany surrendered. But one final battle in the Pacific would shape the end of the war. The Battle of Okinawa in 1945 became the largest amphibious assault in the Pacific. American forces faced fierce resistance from Japanese troops who fought to the last man. The battle lasted nearly 3 months and caused enormous casualties on both sides. The extreme brutality of Okinawa convinced American leaders that invading Japan's mainland would cost millions of lives. This decision ultimately led to the use of atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Shortly afterward, Japan surrendered, bringing World War II to an end in 1945. These 9 battles did more than decide military victories. They changed the balance of power, broke the momentum of powerful armies, and determined the future of entire continents. From the skies over Britain to the streets of Berlin and the islands of the Pacific, these battles reshaped history and defined the modern world. World War II may have involved thousands of battles, but these 9 moments changed everything.